Rain hammered the windshield like a warning he refused to hear. Adrian sat motionless in the driver's seat, his car hidden beneath a flickering street lamp outside the luxury hotel. His breath fogged the glass, shallow and uneven, as he stared at his phone, at the tiny blinking that marked his wife's GPS location. Room 716. Inside this hotel. Right now. She had sworn she was on a girl's trip 3 hours away. His hands trembled harder with every second, not from anger, but from something worse, realizing that the woman he built a life with might already be gone. His wedding ring sat in his open palm, digging painfully into his lifeline, as if testing whether he still had one worth saving. He wasn't ready for the truth, but he was already suffocating in it. The elevator ride felt like punishment. Each second stretched, each floor number stabbing into him like a verdict he didn't want to hear. His reflection in the chrome walls looked as pale as a ghost, someone whose soul had already been ripped away. When the elevator dinged, he stepped into the silent corridor, every step heavy enough to crack the carpet beneath him. Room 716 was slightly open. Voices floated out, Nora's laughter, full and carefree, a sound he hadn't heard directed at him in months. Inside, he saw her wrapped in another man's arms, head on his chest, fingers exploring him like she belonged there. She kissed him like she never had to hide. Adrian didn't storm in. He didn't speak. He simply watched, frozen, hollowed out, paralyzed, emotion silent instead of raging. It hurt more that way. He didn't remember leaving the hotel, didn't remember the drive home, only the numbness, cold, poisonous, spreading through every nerve. But when he entered his study and closed the door behind him, something inside him awakened, not rage, but calculation. He turned on his laptop, opened every account, every backup, every deleted folder, 8 months of call logs downloaded, thousands of erased text messages restored, bank transfers, hotel bookings, secret payments uncovered. He didn't blink, didn't cry. He only searched methodically, quietly like a surgeon removing a tumor. Then it appeared. The man's name. The same man kissing his wife hours ago. Daniel Reeves. Adrian's pulse stopped. The billionaire who once tried to buy Adrian's company and threatened to destroy him when he refused. Now Daniel wasn't just after his business. He had taken his wife. Ethan had always believed that love was built, not found, brick by brick, the same way he designed houses. A talented architect. He was respected in his field, but he never chased fame or awards. His mother, a resilient woman who raised him alone, taught him that relationships were worth fighting for, even when it became heavy. Because of that, Ethan loved fiercely, maybe too fiercely. When Alyssa decided to leave her job to pursue marketing, he didn't hesitate. He gave up 2 promotions, late-night projects, and the chance to lead a major design firm just so she could chase her dreams first. He thought sacrifices were how love grew. But somewhere along the way, while he was building a future for them, she started building something without him. And Ethan could feel it, the distance widening like a crack in a foundation he could no longer repair. Alyssa used to be the kind of woman who left little love notes in his lunchbox and waited at the door just to hug him after work. But in recent months, her warmth had vanished. Her laughter no longer belonged to him. It was poured into her phone, into her flawless Instagram life, into the colleagues and friends who kept telling her she deserved more, deserved better, deserved a life upgrade. Ethan found himself replaying old memories that felt like a different marriage. Passion replaced by tension, late-night conversations replaced by unread messages, plans replaced by excuses. Infertility had been the silent storm between them, shredding their confidence, their intimacy, and eventually their connection. Ethan blamed himself and she blamed the universe. But somewhere in that pain, Alyssa drifted away and didn't try to come back. The cracks in their marriage didn't exist in isolation. People around them saw them forming long before Ethan did. Daniel Price, Alyssa's charismatic boss, had stepped into the empty spaces Ethan couldn't fill during her emotional spiral. Married, handsome, and skilled at validating insecurities, Daniel knew exactly what to say to a vulnerable woman who doubted her worth. At the same time, Megan, Ethan's younger sister, sensed everything. She was the only one who noticed Alyssa's strange perfume, the late-night texts, the sudden expensive clothes. the energy of a woman preparing to leave rather than rebuild. Megan warned Ethan, gently at first, then urgently, but Ethan refused to see the signs. His whole world had always revolved around Alyssa, and when you orbit someone that closely, you miss when they stop orbiting you. The betrayal wasn't a wound. It was a fatal blow to the life he sacrificed himself to build. Ethan didn't shout. He didn't shake. He waited calmly in the living room with the suitcase beside him, the same suitcase Alyssa had packed for her business trip. When she walked in, humming softly and scrolling her phone, she froze. She saw the luggage immediately. Her name tag was still attached. Ethan gestured toward it with a kind of quiet control that was more terrifying than rage. "You forgot something," he said. Alyssa's smile died. Her hands trembled as she reached for the zipper, as if some instinct warned her not to open it. But she did, and her world fell apart in a single gasp. Neatly folded clothes, hotel invoices, her intimate photos with Daniel, printed, a divorce attorney's business card lying on top like a gravestone. The sound she made wasn't a scream. It was a collapse of life she never expected him to uncover. Alyssa's legs gave out, and she fell to her knees beside the open suitcase, gripping the clothes as if they were a lifeline. "Ethan, I can explain." "I swear it's not how it looks," she begged, eyes overflowing, voice frantic with desperation. She kept reaching for his hands, pleading, trying to pull him back into a version of their marriage where apologies fixed everything. But Ethan wasn't moved, not because he didn't feel anything, but because he felt too much. "Funny," he murmured, his voice steady and cold. "I thought I already knew everything." Her sobs filled the house that once echoed with laughter. She had never imagined him discovering the hotel room, the secret reservations, the romantic getaway with Daniel. She never expected consequences. She believed Ethan loved her enough to stay blind. For the first time, she realized he wasn't blind anymore. Alyssa tried to stand, to reach for her purse, for her phone, anything that might give her control again. But Ethan stepped in front of the door before she could take a single step. "You're not going anywhere," he said, not in anger, but in finality. She backed away, frightened not of violence, but of truth. Ethan laid out his terms with chilling clarity. She would not pack another bag, not disappear to Daniel, not escape into excuses. She would stay in the house, and together they would go through every lie, every message, every date, every missing hour, until the whole story was exposed. Alyssa sobbed, collapsing onto the couch, realizing she had walked into a trap she built herself. For the first time in their marriage, the power wasn't hers. The real story, the painful, ugly truth, was only just beginning. Alyssa began talking, but every confession felt incomplete, small pieces of a much bigger lie. She admitted to meeting Daniel, then to kissing, then to needing attention, but every answer tasted rehearsed. Ethan calmly opened their banking app on the TV screen, and the facade shattered. Weekend hotel bookings, jewelry purchases, hidden restaurant bills, all charged to their joint account. The money he saved by skipping lunches, by taking side jobs, by sacrificing promotions, had funded her betrayal. He scrolled further while she begged him to stop, but he did not even blink. Then the final wound arrived, archived messages from her phone backup. She had told Daniel that Ethan was controlling, pathetic, and emotionally weak. Ethan felt something inside him break, not loudly, but quietly, like glass underwater. She lied about cheating, but the words hurt deeper than the affair. As Ethan processed the new truths, memories crashed into him like waves. Flashbacks of every moment Alyssa twisted reality. Nights when she returned home at 2 a.m. and blamed him for not trusting her. Months when every emotional argument ended with her saying he ruined intimacy by being obsessed with having a child. Times when he apologized for things he didn't do just to stop her from shutting him out. Ethan saw now how she gaslit him, how she made him believe the infertility was his fault, how she weaponized pity, to keep him devoted while her heart moved elsewhere. She claimed she was exhausted from work when she was spending nights at hotels, and he realized he had been fighting to fix a marriage she had already abandoned. The worst part wasn't that she cheated. It was that she let him believe he was a reason she was unhappy. A horn outside shattered the silence. Daniel stood in the driveway, fists clenched, shouting for Alyssa to come out. Ethan stepped outside, rage simmering beneath his skin but contained, until Daniel growled that the ruined getaway was her fault for staying with a loser. The fight nearly erupted. Ethan shoved Daniel back. Daniel swung, and only neighbor's porch light stopped it from escalating. Alyssa rushed out, not to protect Ethan, but to defend Daniel. She begged Ethan to calm down so Daniel wouldn't get hurt, and the betrayal in that moment cut deeper than the cheating itself. For the first time, Ethan truly saw the truth. She chose Daniel emotionally long before she chose him physically. And yet, as he watched her cling to another man, the most painful part was the war waging inside him. He still loved her, but that love could never protect him again. The living room felt like a battlefield of broken trust as Alyssa finally stopped hiding behind half-truths. Her breathing shook, shoulders trembling, voice barely audible as she admitted the affair wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. It had been 8 months. Every late shift, every girl's night, every fight she manufactured to leave the house had been a cover for Daniel. Ethan didn't interrupt. He didn't rage. He just listened, and the silence hurt her more than yelling ever could. When Ethan finally asked, "Did you plan a future with him?" she whispered yes, because Daniel promised to divorce his wife. Every emotion in Ethan's body shut down at once, his expression turning unreadable. Then everything exploded when Daniel stepped forward and said coldly, "You were never more than a distraction." Alyssa's face twisted in disbelief, realizing she had thrown away her life for a man who never intended to stay. For years, Ethan had softened blows, walked on eggshells, and protected Alyssa's feelings even when she shattered his. But now something shifted. When she collapsed to the floor begging Daniel not to leave her, Ethan didn't move to help. He didn't shield her from the pain. He let reality hit her full force. Alyssa clawed for answers. "You said you loved me. You said we had a future." But Daniel shrugged with bored irritation, already checking his phone. Every delusion she built came crashing down. Ethan spoke quietly, with no malice, just truth. "You destroyed us for a fantasy that never existed." Alyssa reached out to Ethan, desperate for comfort, but he stepped away. For the first time, she realized he was no longer the man who would sacrifice everything for her. The person she expected to save her was done saving her. Just when Alyssa thought the humiliation couldn't get worse, Ethan dropped the final truth. Not with anger, but with precision. He revealed that he had already spoken to Daniel's wife. HR received an anonymous file with screenshots, hotel invoices, and timestamps. The legal team would contact both of them on Monday regarding policy violation, workplace affair, and fraud. Daniel's face drained of color for the first time. Suddenly, he wasn't arrogant. He was terrified. Alyssa shook violently, realizing everything she gambled for was gone. Her job, her image, her marriage, the man she ruined everything for. Ethan's final words weren't shouted. They were whispered. "You thought you were trading up? Turns out you were just burning down your life." Alyssa screamed, a raw sound of a woman watching her world collapse with no one left to catch her. Ethan didn't slam doors or pack in anger. He simply folded his clothes, placed them in a single suitcase, and walked out of the house that once felt like a future, now just a memory. He moved in with his sister Megan, who didn't ask questions. She just hugged him long and tight, letting him breathe for the first time in months. The next morning, Ethan sat across from a divorce lawyer. Because of Alyssa's infidelity and financial fraud using their joint accounts, he requested majority of the assets, not for revenge, but for justice. Signing the papers didn't make him feel triumphant. It made him feel free. For the first time in years, Ethan wasn't holding a marriage together alone. He wasn't sacrificing himself. He was choosing himself. Returning to the architecture firm full-time felt like stepping back into a forgotten version of himself, one that had passion, purpose, and drive. His colleagues noticed a change immediately. The fire in his eyes, the confidence in his ideas. Projects he once hesitated to lead now landed in his hands effortlessly. Clients praised his creativity, leadership, and discipline. The more he poured into his craft, the more he grew, not to prove anything to Alyssa or Daniel, but because he finally remembered what he was capable of. Therapy became another foundation stone in his healing. He learned that loving someone is not the same as losing yourself, and that walking away isn't failure, it's survival. Ethan no longer woke up wondering how to save his marriage. He woke up wondering how to build his life. Meanwhile, the house Alyssa once showed off on Instagram had become unbearably silent. Her termination letter arrived first. Misconduct due to an inappropriate workplace relationship. Daniel never replied to her messages, deleted her from social media, and walked past her at the office without a glance before resigning to avoid scandal. Every consequence she once believed she could escape returned to her doorstep in full force. She sat alone at the dining table where she and Ethan used to laugh, scrolling through photos of a life she destroyed with her own hands. Her calls to Ethan went straight to voicemail. Her texts were never opened. She whispered his name like a prayer. But prayers don't work when you've burned your altar. What used to be a home now felt like a prison of regret, and the silence hurt more than any argument ever did. 6 months later, the world looked different. Not because everything had changed, but because Ethan had. The sun warmed the courthouse steps as he signed the final divorce papers with steady hands. No hesitation, no lingering heartbreak, just calm acceptance. The judge stamped the document, and in that moment, the weight he'd carried for years finally lifted. Outside, he exhaled deeply, letting the breeze hit his face like a promise of new beginnings. He wasn't celebrating the end of a marriage. He was celebrating the return of himself. He slid the pen across the table, stood up, and walked out of the building with a straight spine and steady breath. The war was over, and he had chosen peace. Not through revenge, not through anger, but through letting go on the steps outside the courthouse. He wasn't expecting to see her, but she was there. Alyssa stood alone, smaller than he remembered, fragile in a way he had never seen. Her eyes were hollow from months of living in consequences she once thought would never touch her. She lowered her gaze before speaking, voice trembling. "You were the best thing in my life, and I destroyed it." There was no drama, no manipulation, just truth. For a split second, Ethan felt the echo of a time when her words mattered, when her pain would have cut him in half. But not now. He looked at her gently, not angry, not bitter, just done. He no longer needed her apology to heal. He already had. Ethan stepped closer, not to hold her, not to hurt her, but to finish the chapter with honesty. His voice was soft, not sharp. "No, you didn't destroy me. You destroyed yourself. I just finally walked away from the ashes." Alyssa broke, not violently, but quietly, because that was the moment she realized he was truly gone. She reached out, but Ethan didn't take her hand. He simply turned and walked down the courthouse steps. The camera of life held on him as the sun rose behind his shoulders, bathing him in warmth. A man walking toward a future he built without sacrifice or fear. He didn't look back once. The world was waiting for him, and this time he knew he deserved it. Fade out.